You know that feeling. You swing down at the ball with a clean iron, and instead of that crisp thud, you get a scrape, a thin one that stings your hands, or a fat one that dribbles 40 yards. And the ground behind the ball is chewed up, but the ground in front of it is untouched. I lived on that scrape for years. Then one small, almost silly adjustment changed everything, and now I take a clean divot in front of the ball nearly every time. It comes from a way of striking the ball that the old ball strikers understood in the 1920s, long before launch monitors and lesson packages. Stick with me, because the finale comes straight out of a golf book printed in 1922, and it works with the exact club sitting in your garage right now. I want to take you back to a hot afternoon at a little 9-hole course outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was standing on a dirt range mat, and the man next to me, easily 70 years old, was flushing 7 irons off the tight grass while I chunked and sculled mine into the weeds. I watched him for 20 minutes. He wasn't stronger than me. He wasn't younger than me. But every single ball he hit came off with that low, hissing sound, and every divot he took started an inch in front of where the ball had been sitting. I finally asked him what he was doing, and what he told me sounded so backwards that I almost didn't try it. That backwards little idea is what this whole video is about. Here is the thing, nobody explains clearly. A good iron shot does not happen when you lift the ball into the air. It happens when the club is still moving down and forward at the moment it meets the ball. The ball gets in the way of a descending club head, gets pinched between the club face and the turf, and that squeeze is what launches it high and makes it stop on the green. The divot is not something you try to make. The divot is proof that the low point of your swing arc was in front of the ball, not behind it. And for most weekend players, the low point is behind the ball. That is the entire problem in one sentence. Your club is already climbing back up by the time it reaches the ball, so you catch it thin, or you crash into the ground first and catch it fat. So the goal is simple to say and hard to do without the right feel. You need to move the bottom of your swing arc forward, past the ball, toward the target. And the weird adjustment that old man showed me does exactly that. He told me to set up with most of my weight already on my front foot and to leave it there the whole swing. Not shift to it, leave it there. I thought that was crazy, because everybody had always told me to load into my back foot on the backswing and then fire off it. But the more I dug into where the good strikers of the past put their pressure, the more I realized that the average golfer has been taught the exact opposite of what produces a clean divot. Let me tell you what happened the first time I actually tried it. I set up to a 7-iron, put maybe 60% of my weight on my lead leg, my left leg for a right-handed player, and I made a small conscious effort not to let it drift back during the takeaway. I made an easy swing, and I heard it, that hiss. The ball came off lower and harder than I expected and climbed into the air, and when I looked down, there was a clean strip of turf peeled up an inch in front of where the ball had been. My first thought was that it was luck, so I did it again. Same sound, same divot. I hit maybe 30 balls that afternoon and took 30 divots, when an hour earlier I could not have taken one on purpose to save my life. But here is where it gets interesting, and here is where I want you to keep listening. Because staying forward is only the first piece. There is a reason it works, and there is a way to make it happen, even if you have tried keeping your weight forward before and still chunked it. Because I will be honest with you, staying forward alone is not enough. There is a second move that has to happen with your hands and the shaft of the club, and if you skip it, you will still hit behind the ball even with all your weight on your front foot. That second move is the real secret, and almost nobody talks about it plainly. Think about where your hands are at the moment of impact. When the good player strikes an iron, his hands are ahead of the ball. Ahead means closer to the target than the ball is. The shaft is leaning forward, the grip end pointing toward his belt buckle or even his lead pocket, and the club head is trailing behind that leaning shaft. This is called forward shaft lean, and it is the single biggest difference between a solid iron player and a scraper. When the shaft leans forward at impact, it does two things at once. It delofts the club, which is why a well-struck 7-iron flies farther than a poorly struck one. And more importantly for us, it moves the lowest point of the arc forward, so the club is still traveling down and through when it reaches the ball, and the divot happens after the ball, right where you want it. Now here's the memory that made this click for me. I was watching that old man again, a week later, and I noticed his hands at the finish of his takeaway and at impact. His grip end was always leading. The club head was always chasing it. He told me something I have never forgotten. He said, "The club head is the last thing to arrive, not the first." Most amateurs try to throw the club head at the ball, flipping their wrists to help the ball up, and that flip throws the low point behind the ball and adds loft, which is exactly why the ball goes nowhere. He said, "Quit helping the ball into the air. Trap it against the ground and let the loft of the club do the lifting. It already has plenty of loft built in. You do not need to add any." This is the part that feels backwards, and it is the part that hangs people up. Every instinct in your body tells you to lift the ball. It is sitting on the ground, you want it in the air, so your brain says scoop it up, but scooping is the enemy. The more you try to lift, the more you flip your wrists, and the more you fall backward onto your rear foot, and the low point moves behind the ball, and you hit it thin or fat. The whole trick is to trust that a downward, forward strike sends the ball upward. It is counterintuitive, and that is exactly why it got forgotten and why so few weekend players ever stumble onto it. So let me give you the setup that produces this, step by step, the way I finally learned to do it. First, your weight. Set up with about 60% of your pressure on your lead foot before you even start the club back. You should feel a little more load in your front hip and front thigh. Second, your hands. Let them sit slightly ahead of the ball at address, so the shaft already has a gentle forward lean before you move. A good checkpoint is that the grip end points at the inside of your lead thigh, not straight up at your belly button. Third, your ball position. For a middle iron, put the ball just barely behind the center of your stance, maybe a ball width back of dead center. That helps you catch it while the club is still descending. These three things stack together, and when they line up, the divot shows up on its own. But I know what some of you are thinking right now because I thought it too. You are thinking, if I put my weight forward and lean the shaft toward the target, will I not just drive the club into the ground behind the ball and take a huge chunk? That is a fair worry, and it is why the timing of the pressure matters. Let me walk you through the one drill that fixed this for me faster than anything, and it costs nothing. Here is where the story gets a little deeper, because I got curious about where this knowledge came from. I did not want to just take one old man's word for it, even though his ball flight was all the proof anyone should need. So I started reading the old golf books, the ones written before television, before slow-motion cameras, before any of the modern teaching industry existed. And what I found genuinely surprised me. These men understood the descending strike 100 years ago, described it in plain language, and then somehow the mainstream teaching drifted away from it. There is a book called Golf Fundamentals, written by a teaching professional named Seymour Dunn, and it was published in 1922. Dunn came from a whole family of Scottish golf professionals, and he did something almost nobody had done before. He described the golf swing geometrically, like an engineer. He talked about the swing as an arc with a lowest point, and he wrote plainly that for a proper iron shot, that lowest point must fall on the target side of the ball. Read that again. In 1922, before any of the gadgets we have today, a man wrote down in a book that the bottom of your swing has to be in front of the ball. He understood it as geometry. The ball is struck on the way down, the turf is brushed after the ball, and the club reaches the bottom of its circle beyond where the ball sat. Everything I stumbled into on that dirt range in Iowa, this man had already mapped out a full century ago. And Dunn was not alone. A little later, an Englishman named Percy Boomer wrote a book called On Learning Golf, published in the 1940s, and he taught the feeling of the swing through the feet and the body rather than through positions. Boomer taught the great players of his era, and he talked constantly about staying centered and controlling the bottom of the arc, about not sliding and swaying all over the place, which throws the low point around. And then, of course, there is the most famous instruction book ever written, Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons, from 1957. Hogan was maybe the greatest ball striker who ever lived, and he took divots that looked like somebody had run a sod cutter through the fairway, every one of them in front of the ball, every one of them the same depth and direction. His whole method was built around compressing the ball with a descending blow, so the knowledge was there. It was written down. It was proven by the best players of the last 100 years. And yet somehow the average golfer today, standing on a range paying for bucket after bucket of balls, has never once had it explained in a way he can use. That started to bother me. Because when knowledge this useful gets buried, somebody usually benefits from it staying buried. Hold that thought, because we are going to come back to it. Let me give you the drill I promised, the one that teaches the forward low point without you having to think about a dozen things at once. Take a range towel or an old bath towel from home and fold it into a long strip. Lay it on the ground about 6 inches behind your ball, on the side away from the target. Then just try to hit shots without touching the towel. That is the whole drill. If your low point is behind the ball, if you are chunking it or flipping your wrists, your club will slam into that towel first, and you will feel it and hear it. To miss the towel, you are forced to keep the club moving down and forward and to make contact with the ball before the ground. Within about 10 swings, your body figures out on its own what your brain could never manage with instructions. I did this for 2 weeks straight, 20 minutes at a time, and the forward strike started to feel normal. It stopped being something I forced and became something I just did. That made me angry when I finally understood it, and it also lit a fire under me to keep digging into those old books. And if you want to go even deeper into this recovered knowledge before we get to the finale, I want to tell you about something I put together specifically for players like you. I wrote it out in 3 parts: first fix, deep fix, and fix it all, because I wanted to give every kind of golfer a place to start, whether you are just finding this idea for the first time or whether you have been chasing the clean divot for years and something keeps slipping. The books are available in the description below, and they go further than I can in a single video into exactly why these old principles work and how to stack them together so the improvement actually sticks. If what I have been saying today resonates with you, those books are the next natural step. But now let me come back to what I was saying, because that anger sent me straight back into those old books, and that is exactly where I found the finale I promised you at the very beginning. Now, I want to talk directly to you if you are sitting there thinking this all sounds like a lot of work, or thinking you need to go buy a training aid or book a string of expensive lessons to fix your ball striking. I want you to hear me clearly, because the next part was made specifically for you. You do not need to buy a single thing. You do not need a launch monitor. You do not need one of those weighted clubs or a fancy impact bag or a subscription to some online academy. Everything I am describing can be done tonight, in your living room or your backyard, with a club you already own and household items you already have. Let me prove it to you. Take your 7-iron into the backyard or even inside if you have a bit of ceiling room and a soft object to hit, like a rolled-up sock or a plastic wiffle ball. You are not even going to hit anything hard. You are going to make slow-motion swings and check 3 things. First, before you swing, look down and make sure your hands are slightly ahead of that sock, shaft leaning gently toward the target. Second, feel most of your weight in your lead foot and keep it there. Press your lead heel into the floor and feel that it stays pressed the whole time. Third, make a slow swing and freeze at the moment of contact, and check that your hands have arrived at the ball before your club head has, that the grip is still leading. Do that 50 times over the course of an evening while you watch television. You are training the exact position Seymour Dunn described in 1922, using nothing but a club and a sock. That is the whole point of everything I share. The answers are almost never something you have to buy. They're almost always something you already have, waiting for someone to remind you how to use it. Here is another one you can do with a household item, and it is the one that finally made the forward shaft lean feel real for me. Take a wooden ruler or a paint stir stick and hold it against the shaft of your club, running up along the back of your lead forearm. Now make a slow swing into impact. If your wrist flips and breaks down, the stick will jab into your forearm and you will feel it right away. If you keep the back of your lead wrist flat and firm through impact, the stick stays quiet against your arm. That flat lead wrist is the physical thing that creates forward shaft lean. It is the thing that stops the scoop. And you can train it with a stick from your garage, sitting on your couch, for free, tonight. Now let me come back to that thing I asked you to hold on to. Why is it that something so simple, Something written down clearly 100 years ago and demonstrated by every great player since is something most golfers never learn. I used to think it was just bad luck, or that I wasn't paying attention. But the longer I have been around this game, the more I have come to believe it is not an accident. Think about how the golf teaching business actually makes its money. It does not make money when you solve your problem in one afternoon with a towel and a household ruler. It makes money when you keep coming back, when you buy the next lesson package, when you buy the newest driver every 2 years because they told you it will fix your slice, when you buy the training aid advertised during the tournament broadcast, the one with the buzzing sensor and the phone app and the yearly fee. There is an entire industry built on the idea that your bad ball striking is a complicated problem that requires expensive, ongoing help. And a simple truth, like move your low point in front of the ball by staying forward and leaning the shaft, does not sell training aids. In fact, it makes a lot of them unnecessary. I am not saying every teacher is a crook. Far from it. The old man on that dirt range gave me the most valuable golf lesson of my life for free. But the machine around this game, the marketing and the product cycle and the constant message that you need to buy your way to a better swing, that machine has no interest in a 100-year-old idea that costs nothing, so the idea gets drowned out. It gets buried under noise. And a whole generation of golfers grows up thinking a clean divot is some kind of magic reserved for the naturally gifted, when it is really just geometry that anyone can learn in an evening. This is the piece that took my ball striking from occasionally clean to consistently clean, and it comes straight out of that 1922 book by Seymour Dunn, described in a way I have almost never heard a modern teacher explain. Here it is. Dunn wrote about the golf swing as a circle, and he pointed out something most people never think about. The club head does not travel in a flat line along the ground. It travels in an arc, a circle tilted on its side. And on the way down into the ball, the club head is not only moving downward, it is also moving outward, away from your body, reaching its fullest extension right around the bottom of that circle. What this means in plain terms is that your arms and the club have to be reaching their longest, most extended point in front of the ball, not at the ball. If you reach full extension at the ball or behind it, your arc bottoms out too early and you climb up into a thin shot. So the feel that Dunn's geometry gives you is this. You want to feel like you are extending your arms toward the target after the ball, like you are reaching the club head out low and long past where the ball was, chasing the target with the club head low to the ground. When I took that feel to the range, everything locked in. Instead of thinking about hitting the ball, I thought about extending long and low past the ball, reaching toward the target after contact. And because the club was reaching its lowest, most extended point in front of the ball, the divot showed up in front of the ball automatically every single time. I stopped trying to make a divot. I just reached past the ball toward the target, and the divot took care of itself. That is the whole thing. That is the secret that was sitting in a book from 1922, written by a Scottish professional whose family had been teaching golf for generations, waiting for somebody to blow the dust off it. Let me put the whole picture together for you so you can take it to the course this weekend. You set up with about 60% of your weight on your lead foot, and you keep it there. Your hands sit slightly ahead of the ball so the shaft leans a touch toward the target. The ball is a hair back of center in your stance for a middle iron. You make your swing, and as you come down, you keep the back of your lead wrist flat and firm so you do not flip. And through impact, you feel like you are reaching the club head low and long past the ball, extending toward the target. That combination, the forward weight, the forward shaft lean, the flat lead wrist, and the extension past the ball, is what puts the bottom of your swing in front of the ball. And the bottom of your swing being in front of the ball is the entire reason a good player takes a clean divot and you did not. I want you to notice something about that list. Not one item on it costs a dime. Not one requires a new club, a new gadget, or a new lesson package. The weight shift is free. The shaft lean is free. The flat wrist you can train with a paint stick. The extension you can feel with slow swings in your backyard. Every bit of it is knowledge, not equipment. And that is the thing they never want you to fully understand about this game, that the biggest improvement available to you is almost always free, and the biggest scam is the constant suggestion that you have to pay to get better. I remember the first full round I played after all of this finally came together. I was on a par 3, about 150 yards, and I pulled that same 7-iron, and I did not think about a single mechanical thing. I just set up forward, felt my hands ahead, and reached long past the ball toward the flag. That ball came off with a hiss I had chased for years, took one hop, and stopped 6 feet from the hole. I looked back at my divot, and it was a clean rectangle of turf, lying a full inch in front of where my ball had been. I had become the old man on the dirt range, and it did not take talent. It did not take money. It took a 100-year-old idea that somebody handed me for free and that I am now handing to you. So here's what I want you to carry away from all of this, and it is bigger than golf. You were never a bad ball striker. You were just never told the one true thing that every great player has always known, the thing that was written down plainly in 1922 and then buried under decades of noise and salesmanship. The clean divot was never out of your reach. It was just kept quiet. Because a golfer who knows this simple truth is a golfer who stops buying his way to a fix. You just took it back. That is who this channel is for, by the way. The person who would rather learn the real thing once than rent a fake fix forever. The person who trusts 100 years of proof and plain common sense over a shiny new gadget with a monthly fee. If that is you, you are in the right place, and you are among friends here. Now, I want to hear from you, and I mean this specifically. Try the towel drill this weekend, the folded towel 6 inches behind the ball, and come back and tell me what happened when you tried to miss it. Did you finally hear that hiss? Did you find your divot in front of the ball for the first time in your life? Leave me a comment and tell me, because I read them, and this audience needs to speak up more than it does. Do not just nod along and move on. Take 30 seconds and type it out. And while you are at it, tell me where you are watching from, because I love knowing what part of the country or what part of the world these old ideas are traveling to. If you found value in this, do more than like it. Subscribe and stand with the people who are recovering the practical knowledge that got buried under 100 years of being sold to. That is what we do here, one forgotten truth at a time. Because next time, I am going to show you the old grip adjustment that quietly cures a slice without changing your swing at all. And it comes from the same era as everything I showed you today. You are going to want to be here for that one. Keep your weight forward, reach past the ball, and go take your divot. You know that clean divot we just found together? There's more, and I keep the deeper part inside my membership, the Old Ways Almanac, picking up right where we stopped. You can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself. A real person, no bots. And folks like you are already in there with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime, one click.